All right, perfect. Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the MN WIFT Monday session on the financial education, women, wealth, and wisdom, led by Autumn Schinka. It's Monday, March 27th, and wow, time's going by really quick. For those in this meeting, I'm Reyna Rios. I'm an actor, writer, and producer, and I was recently elected to be part of the board of directors for MN WIFT. I know that some of you were expecting Ariel, but she was unable to come today, so I will be in her place. For those who are not familiar with MN WIFT, we are a Minnesota women in film and TV, and we are an all-growing, all-volunteer nonprofit organization comprised of members who work in film, television, and new media in Minnesota. Our goals are to educate, empower, engage, and support women in these industries. Also, in the process, we have fun and we love sharing the ideas and the connections along with creating momentum that benefits careers. If you would like to learn more about MN WIFT and its membership program, you're welcome to add your email to the chat and we'll reach out to you. Perfect, thank you. Now for our guest, Autumn Schinka. Autumn Schinka is a financial advisor with Thrivent Financial. She is a former MN WIFT member who spent 25 years in the TV and production industry. Most recently as an executive producer director, but did a career pivot just to follow her passion for helping people with their finances and achieve their goals. Connecting with her former production industry peers to help them find financial clarity has been and continues to be a major focus. And Autumn, go ahead and lead the way whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction, Reyna, and thank you all for having me back to MN WIFT. As Reyna said, I'm a former member when I was in the production industry and enjoyed some of the fun events and MN WIFT Mondays that occurred. And so it's fun to be back now in my new career as a financial advisor. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own story in a bit and how I got into this career as a financial advisor. And I also, of course, am going to be talking about the 6 stories of other women related to their finances. So stories about a few things that they figured out about money and enrich their lives in ways that are more than just money. And so I'm excited to tell you those 6 stories. But first, I wanted to introduce a colleague of mine that I also brought with me, and he is going to be sharing towards the end. Toby Kaplan is also a financial advisor with Thrivent. He's a colleague of mine who I have enjoyed working with as we serve folks in the small business community and helping them, like Reyna said, with finding financial clarity. I brought Toby along because he is an expert in this area in the sense that his family comes from a background of small business. His wife is a small business owner and he has other family members as well. And so is just really passionate about serving small business owners with their finances and certainly families and professionals as well. But that's just one area he's really passionate about. And so just wanted to introduce Toby, and you'll hear more from him towards the end. So thanks for joining me again, Toby. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I have some visuals to go along with these 6 stories. Before I get started, though, it would be helpful if in the chat, maybe you want to drop just a brief description of your role, meaning are you a production business owner? Are you a freelancer? Are you under contract with a company? Are you employed by a company? And so you have employee benefits and things like that. It's just helpful to kind of know, your business status or your solopreneur, that kind of thing, so that we kind of can tailor our information a little bit better. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, dropping in the chat, freelance, contractor, employee, solopreneur, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to share my screen just so I can add some visuals here that I think would be helpful as I share these stories. Oh. Reyna, are you able to see the visuals that I put up on the screen?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So the 6 women's stories that I'm going to be sharing today are around the topics of managing your money. Another story is around protecting your most valuable asset. And we're going to learn about what that actually is. Might be surprising to some. The third story around saving if you're eligible for a company match. And that's kind of why I was asking about, status of your employment and that kind of thing. Because that particular story is around saving for the company match, but we'll also just talk about saving for retirement. 4th story around living the life you want. Next, avoiding regrets. And the 6th story is around generosity and paying it forward. But first, I thought I would start out with my own story and why I care so much about personal finance and investing and helping others and serving others in this capacity. So as Reyna said, I have a background in television production. I actually started in the television news business. I was a producer for a variety of television stations and decided, that is just not what I thought it was going to be. And so I decided to go a different route, left the television business and went into corporate video. So I worked at Best Buy corporate for the last 20 years with the Yellow Tag Productions team. If you all have, some of you might have heard of them, or I see even a couple of people on the call who I worked with in a freelance capacity or hired as a freelancer when I was at Best Buy. So as a producer and director and executive producer, I was very involved in the local production community, and I met so many amazing people as I worked in the community. But through the years, I also found that I had this huge passion for finances and learning about investing. And as I learned more and more knowledge around all of that, then I started to help my friends and family, and then eventually coworkers. I would be on sets or in edit suites, and I couldn't help but share some of this knowledge with my peers. And certainly too, as an executive producer, I was in charge of many budgets, managing many budgets, and I would gravitate towards that kind of work over writing a script or creating a shot list or building a production schedule, just because I loved the money aspect of managing the dollars allowed to us for a particular project. And so that was kind of a clue to me that, maybe this passion is something I someday want to follow. And then I was given the opportunity to come to Thrivent. And as I started to become a financial advisor and work with more and more people, I found that I was most passionate about people that are in the production industry. I speak the language. I was in it for so long that I found there just was a big need, and I really enjoyed connecting with writers, producers, DPs, audio engineers, editors, graphic artists. So that seems to be the majority of people that I'm working with these days, and I'm loving it because, like I said, I get to connect with the folks that I used to work with in the industry. Certainly, I think it's in your blood. I will always be a visual storyteller, so don't put it past me that I end up as a freelancer on a project again someday. But for now, I am focused on helping people find financial clarity and certainly learn how to achieve goals. We're going to talk a little bit later about how money is such an awesome tool to achieve goals in life. And so I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. But on to the first story. This first story, her name is Desta. And what I love about Desta is that we have a lot to learn from Desta, because throughout her 20s and 30s, she was kind of scraping along at different odd jobs, paycheck to paycheck, just making sure she could cover the bills. And she learned a lot about everyday money management. But certainly when she went to go buy her first home, it was a townhouse, she decided, I don't know now if I can afford this townhouse. And I signed up for this mortgage. And were my eyes bigger than my pocketbook? And so she realized that as she got her first insurance bill for this home that she couldn't afford, she realized she had to really figure out exactly what money was coming in and what money was coming out. And so I don't know about you, but I can relate to this. I have been at this period of my life where you're tracking every dollar and how much is coming in every month and how much is going out. And really it's finance, that's the foundation of what it is, right? Like how much is coming in, how much is coming out. Now, if you have a variable income, that can be a challenge because that varies from month to month or week to week, right? But overall, as long as you're tracking along at what is being spent and certainly making decisions as far as wants and needs, you can become like Desta, where you get to a point where you don't feel the stress anymore around the, can I afford this and can I afford this home that I just purchased, which is a great investment for Desta, but she really had to figure out the put a spending plan in place. I love the word spending plan, by the way, not budget. Budget sounds so restrictive. I like to spend money, so I hate the idea of being restrictive with the money I earn. And so that's why I call it a spending plan. And I have a line item in my spending plan that's for entertainment and eating out. I have a line item in my spending plan for gifts and clothes and things like that, because I like to do that. But I have a plan for that money and a certain amount each month that I am focused on. And so I guess the one thing I think that is a good takeaway from Desta's story is how can you be more responsible with your personal finances? And maybe like, what's one takeaway from Desta's story that you could do today after the webinar to focus on? So maybe you go and you set up a direct deposit account where you have a checking account. That's where all your expenses come out. You have a savings account. That's where you're starting to build up savings for a trip or that townhouse that you want to buy like Desta. Or maybe you're just paying attention more to your spending. You're going back to your bank statements and you're saying, how much am I really spending on eating out or coffees? And can I just tone that down a bit and decide that next month, this is how much I'm going to spend versus just not knowing how much is going out. I like the word poof money, like poof, it's gone. I mean, honestly, if you don't make a plan for your money, you will find that it just disappears. It just goes, it slips through. So how can you avoid having poof money? And tracking your expenses is a good way to do that. So just some ideas here around other ways to take some responsibility with your personal finances. So this next quote, this quote is for our next story. And this story is Stephanie's. Not planning for unfortunate things to happen doesn't mean they won't. And this quote will make sense when you hear a little bit more about Stephanie's story. So Stephanie, she learned an important lesson around protecting her most valuable asset. What do you think your most valuable asset is? Some people might say their house because it's worth a lot of money. But actually, your most valuable asset is your ability to earn an income. Because if that goes away, then your finances are in real critical. You're in real serious trouble if you can no longer bring money in for your expenses that you have. And so Stephanie was very fortunate in the fact that she went to dental school. And when she went to dental school, shortly after, she went on a walk. And on this walk, she met a neighbor of hers. I'm just looking for my phone quick so I can make sure I'm keeping on time for, I don't have a clock when I'm up here presenting. So hopefully if I get too long-winded, you guys can start to wrap me up. So Stephanie went for a walk and she ran into her neighbor, and she had just gotten out of dental school, and she noticed that her neighbor now was in a wheelchair, which he wasn't before. And through this conversation, she learned that he had suffered a serious car accident injury, and as a result of that was out of work for several months. He did not have disability insurance. And so what that meant was now he was too injured to go and do his job and was not able to earn an income, his most important asset. That was kind of a wake-up call for Stephanie, because she thought to herself, gosh, I don't think I have that as a dentist, and I just spent all this money on a dental degree, and now I'm doing this job. And so, gosh, I probably should pay attention and get disability insurance. Especially, she couldn't get this quote out of her mind that not planning for unfortunate things to happen doesn't mean they won't. That was her neighbor's quote. And so as a result, she started looking into disability income insurance. In fact, as a small business owner, and I'm gonna have Toby talk a little bit more about this too, is as a small business owner, she was able to put these benefits in place in order and write them off against her business as a benefit for her business and her employees. And so there's paperwork that can be done and things that can be put into place to make that happen. And well, Toby touch on that a little bit more later. But, you know, pretend you're a director and you go for a walk with your dog and you slip on the ice and you hit your head and you suffer an injury as a result, and you're not able to go to set or sit in edit suites for weeks or months on end and earn an income. That means you're going to have to start dipping into savings if you have savings or other things to, again, pay those expenses. And so I tell Stephanie's story as a little bit of a warning, just to make sure that we're paying attention to things like that to protect our income. And so you might want to ask yourself, you know, how are you protected? One thing, and I'm going to look in the chat here because I haven't had too much of an opportunity. Are there, let's see, so we have freelancers, employee, full-time employee, freelance contractor, freelancer, independent contractor, full-time employee, freelance. I love this. Okay, so lots and lots of different, you know, roles and statuses for your jobs. A few of you are full-time employees, and you have employers, which many times large employers will have disability insurance in place for you, group disability insurance, also group life insurance. But like for group disability insurance, for example, typically that only pays 60% of your salary if you had to go on disability. And after taxes, that would only cover approximately 45% of your income. So if you start thinking about your income being more than cut in half if you were to get sick or injured, and that scares you, which it would scare me, then there, you know, is options that you can do where you can get like supplemental insurance to make sure that that coverage is closer to like a 90%, that you would get 90% of your salary if you were to get sick or injured. And certainly, like, we never think that's going to happen to us, right? But the statistics show that the odds of becoming disabled or sick or injured is actually higher than, you know, somebody dying if they're in their younger years. And so disability insurance, I would argue, is more important than life insurance because of the odds being higher that you would become sick or injured throughout your career versus dying younger in life. That's just what the statistics show. And the other thing too is like that there's the bankruptcy cases are very high because of what happens when people have to go on disability and they lose their income as a result of an illness or injury. So again, just Stephanie's story hopefully makes you pause a little bit and think about how you're protected. Look into your own employer's coverage, or if you don't have it yourself, how you can get that in place. The next story is the story of Rebecca. I'm going to advance my slide here. It seems to be stuck. Well, there she is. Okay, Rebecca, her story is around saving now for the future. So that's tough to do, right? If you have a variable income, meaning that you don't kind of know when that next project is going to come up, or you are looking to see you're on a project for several months, but then don't have anything lined up after that if you're a freelancer. So that's tough to do with a variable income. But certainly there's times you might find, and this is true of Rebecca, where she would have kind of a surplus. And with that surplus, she had a decision to make, right? She could go on a trip and spend some of that money. She could put it in savings. She could do a remodel on her house or upgrade things. She could, whatever she want to do. But the surplus periods are a great time to be thinking long-term for your goals and not always just here in the now. In fact, Toby and I work with people about we talk to people about what are your goals in life, and he's going to talk a little bit more about this, but what are your goals in life? What are your short-term goals within the next like year or two? What are your intermediate goals? What would you love to do in the next 5 years? Maybe you want to go back to school. Maybe you want to buy a second property to use it as a passive income opportunity. Maybe in the next 5 years, you'd like to save more money to be able to fund your child's college. And so kind of like this intermediate saving period we talk about, but then we also talk about long-term, like when would you like to retire? And for some people, retirement isn't necessarily like, I'm done working, I'm never going to work again. Retirement could be, I want to step back from this 40 to 50 to 60 hour work week job and just do something different. Or maybe I just want to work like 15 to 20 hours a week. Maybe for the production industry, you're like, you know, I would like to just be able to pick and choose which projects I work on rather than having to take everyone that comes my way because I need the income. And so fortunately, Rebecca had this great mentor at work, and she was pulled into a meeting one day with him, and he was just really passionate about talking to her about her long-term goals and around retirement. And she was in her 20s at the time and thought, well, that's so long from now. But he taught her about the company match. Of course, many employers will have a company match with their 401ks or their Roth 401ks. And so if you work for an employer, you know, that offers that, it's a great benefit. You don't want to leave money on the table. So if you can invest up to that match, that is huge. And certainly one thing that Rebecca benefited from was that her superior really talked to her about saving early. So this visual talks about the magic of compound interest. And as you can see with it, she fortunately started saving back in her late 20s. So she's that blue line. And as a result of saving, the earlier you save, then the longer you have ahead of you, that runway ahead of you, for your money, if it's invested, to compound, to double. There's this cool thing called the rule of 72, if you've heard of that. So over the history of the stock market, the annualized return has been 10% over the history, 10% per year. And so the rule of 72 is if you take 72 divided by the return on the stock market, and let's say in this scenario, 10%, that means that every 7.2 years, your money, if it's invested, if you stay in the market, is doubling. And so the longer you have it invested, the more your money has to double. And the later you get in, there's not as many opportunities for that money to double before you have to start living on that money in retirement. So that was something that Rebecca learned from her employer, and she was thrilled about that. I'm going to have Toby talking in a little bit specifically for small business owners and freelancers around some options around you've probably heard of a SEP IRA or an individual 401ks, but just some options for those that don't have employer retirement accounts and that company match, ways to save for retirement. And so a to-do here based on Rebecca's story, maybe it's time to kind of review some of those investment accounts, see how they're performing. Maybe you've left an employer recently and became freelance, and you have an old 401k or an employer retirement plan. And so you're looking at, what do I do with that old plan now that I'm not investing in it anymore? And so maybe a rollover is something to be considered. So just something to think about as far as some more to-dos based on this story. Next story, Maria, find your passion. You know, I can relate to this one because I found mine. Maria used to be a writer for some local TV stations, and she enjoyed writing, but her true passion was music. She played her violin and her piano whenever she possibly could. And she always wanted to make a living at music, but just never thought that she'd be able to afford to be able to make music her primary career. But eventually she decided that she was going to pursue this as much as she could and see what happens. And so she went to an audition, and long story short, after that first audition and landing an initial project, she met more and more people in this industry, in the music industry. And from there, she eventually, a few years later, ended up landing her dream job of writing music for scores, for movie and television scores. And so here she is now making a living at her passion of music. Of course, she uses the very cliched quote, I've never worked a day in my life now because I love what I do. And so, do you love what you do? I guess this is just my encouragement to you to go and find that passion, and use her story as a way to think about, maybe there's this small voice inside of you nudging you to do something different or something bigger, and maybe something more meaningful that would be more fulfilling for you. And so if something that you just can't put your finger on, but you'd love to do it, I say go for it, because I did that myself and sure glad I did. At Thrivent, we talk about money as a tool, not a goal. And I am looking forward to hearing Toby's viewpoint on that a little bit more too. But I just love the idea that, it's not like why are you working? What are you just working to make money? Most people aren't, right? They're working because they have dreams and they have goals. And so money is a great tool to be able to achieve things and dreams in life. But again, we have to have a plan for that. And if we don't, then they just become dreams that are out there. Toby and I love to help people document those goals and then put plans in place to make those dreams happen. The next story, this one's kind of a tough one again, too, kind of similar to the previous story, the dentist. Chantel was married to Kyle right out of college, and they had a family, and they were both, he had a career and she was staying home with the kiddos. Chantel received some devastating news from her husband when he had non-smoker's lung cancer. Found out Kyle had months to live, and unfortunately at the age of 42 became a widow. And I tell this sad story because I think her quote is something that really hit home for me. She says, looking back, when your partner dies that young, nobody asks if they had saved for retirement, but people did ask me if Kyle had life insurance, and that answer was no. She battled through Kyle's illness with this idea in mind and kept thinking, I should have made that a priority. I should have made sure that my family was protected and just got some insurance in place so that we would be protected if something were to happen to one of us. And of course, she never imagined at their young age of 40 that would happen. You just don't think that that's going to happen to you. And so, I think that her story again is just an opportunity to do a little bit of a check with ourselves and ask, do we have life insurance? Do we have people depending on our income? And if something were to happen to us and our income is no longer there for us, how would that affect our loved ones? And this even affects women and men that are stay-at-home parents, because certainly if something happened to them, now who's taking care of the children at home? Who's managing the household? So I even advise people who don't even have incomes to think about protection, because if they're no longer there, now you got to hire somebody to take care of the children, to run the household, and all of those kinds of things. So that's what I just wanted to share about Chantel's story. And the last story, and on a positive here, is a story that I think is pretty cool around paying it forward. So this is Megan. Megan, she got her first job out of college. She moved quickly. She found a roommate, did all those kinds of things that many of us do as we get out of high school and start our life, or start adulting, as many of us call it. She went and bought her first car. and she put all of her money towards her car, got to the DMV, realized the DMV did not accept credit cards, and she needed to pay $700 for her first registration and licensing. $700. Where was she going to come up with that? And so fortunately, Megan has an amazing aunt that she's close to, and she went over to her aunt's house in a panic, explained her predicament, asked her aunt if she could borrow some money to help pay for this licensing. And of course, her aunt gave her the money. In fact, her aunt said, Megan, please don't pay me back. Remember this day, and in the future, when you have a chance, offer your help to someone who asks. I think this story is just so full of grace. You know, there's going to come time in our lives where we're going to be in a predicament, and Megan was in one of those situations and she had someone to help. And so fortunately, she never forgot that story and had opportunities later in life to pay it forward to others when they were in a financial bind. Giving is so much fun, but it's hard to give if we don't have a plan for our money. If we don't have that spending plan for our money, we may be a little more reluctant to give towards something we truly want to, because we're just not sure if we can afford it. And so if you have a plan for your money, this goes all the way back to the first story around a spending plan, then we can be generous with our money, and giving is the most fun we can do with our money. So those are my 6 stories that I wanted to share. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Toby, because I just think he has a wealth of knowledge that would also be of value to you. So Toby, I'm going to hand it over to you. And what do you want to dive into a little further that can help the men and women on the webinar?
Thank you. Just what I heard you say, though, was talking about protecting your income as your most valuable thing. And there's really all the stories that you have. I'm glad we ended on a positive note, but
yeah,
each story you talked about, there was a purpose for everything that you're talking about. And that kind of goes into what I like to do with my clients. I primarily work with small business owners, as I am a small business owner. My wife owns her own automotive shop, a strong female in a male dominant industry. You know, there's a purpose for everything we do. And when it comes to the point where I read in the chat here what all of you do, and some of the businesses you own, or the roles you play, or the different hats that you wear. And I enjoy working with all sorts of individuals like yourself, because you're entrepreneurs, you're intuitive, you're always trying to better yourself, your employees, your business, your product, your brand. So what we've been doing a lot the last 3 years, especially, is especially since COVID, and since the instance of losing employees is very, very common, is the number one question I get is, how can I maintain my employees without paying them twice as much of income? And that's not a tailored answer. There's a lot of different ways. But that's a big question. How do I keep my employees? I have a key person. I don't know what I would do if I lost them. You know, if someone's looking to retire soon, or if they just started a business, we go over this main important point, which is called a buy-sell agreement. And there's so many ways to do that. If you own a business, what happens to you if you don't show up tomorrow? Does your spouse inherit the business and take over? Is your spouse going to then run the business, or is there somebody else that's going to run the business? Are you protected if that happens? You know, if you don't show up tomorrow and someone else is going to take over and that's set, the next question I like to ask is the business then still profitable, or is it still scalable per what your vision of it was? So there's lots of questions, and there's no specific thing that I could do, especially in 15 minutes. I can never tackle all of those things. You have our contact info for any questions if you are interested in anything that I have to say. But those are some of the big things in working with small business owners: is buy-sell agreements, key person insurance, let's see here, benefits, one thing that a lot of people see value in, if you're an employee or if you're a business owner, maybe your spouse is an employee. We go through benefits programs with all of our clients. So if Autumn is a client of mine and her spouse is not, and her spouse carries the benefits, we're sitting down with Autumn and her spouse to look at what are our options for benefits. And if you have kids, statistically, we've saved about $7,000 to $11,000 per family on taxes every year. So again, if you have a financial advisor, utilize them for it. Obviously, Autumn and I are always here to help. That's just another takeaway of there's so many things in benefits now, but that's just something to pay close attention to and not let just slip through the cracks.
Hey, Toby, can you speak also to some of the ways that people are saving for retirement as small business owners?
That's my next point, actually. Thank you.
Mhm.
Tax efficient investing is the most important thing here. And the Autumn showed you guys that that slide, which showed if you start age 25, 35, 45, 55. And there's another one out there. If you invest in it with tax deferred, right, your 401k, it reduces your taxable income today. So then later on, you pay taxes on it. That was invented over 100 years ago, just about. And it was invented then because the tax rates at that point were about 90%. So people wanted to defer tax until later when the tax bracket was lower. Well, right now we're in an industry low for taxes where you want to pay the taxes today. There are some ways to get around paying taxes, and we help you with that. But at the end of the day, when there's some things that we can't, we always like to invest in a vehicle which grows tax-free, and then you take it out and accumulates and use it as income tax-free. And for small business owners, whether you're an S Corp, an LLC, an entrepreneur, Schedule C, or an employee, there's ways to do that. And especially if you're a business owner, you can use your business, and you have your own account. You use your business and you fund this retirement account as a tax deduction for your business. It funds the account. It's tax-free, grows tax-free. You take it out tax-free. In my mind, on paper, that's the best investment that there is. And again, your business is paying for it. And that's for yourself. That's for your spouse, your kids, maybe some key employees. That's probably the number one tax efficient investing recommendation that we deal with our clients all the time. Hiring your kids. That's another very good strategy. If you have a tax advisor, I advise you to touch base with them first. I am not a CPA or a tax advisor, but I do recommend my clients talk to one all the time about hiring your kids. If your kids in the state of Minnesota, for example, are age 11 or older, they can be hired for labor work, I believe is the term, if they're under that age, but you're in video production, which I have a huge passion for. I know my dad has been in video production for 35 years for the city of St. Paul, and I know he's the first one there and he's the last one to leave. And I've seen him work from home, and I know how hard he works. So I appreciate what you all do. However, if you have kids that are under the age of 11, so I have a almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. If you hear some background music or banging on the door, it's them. But we can hire them. My wife owns a small business. We can take pictures of them working on cars, playing in the office, and saying, if you come to the shop, you can bring your kids with, and they can be in the waiting room. That's marketing. So that's one way to get around the labor laws, is if you're hiring your kids for marketing. So social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever platform you use, if you hire your kids for that, you pay them $6,000 each a year, give or take the numbers here. And you put that into a Roth IRA or just any retirement account or individual account, and it can grow tax-free from now until they retire. $6,000 a year from age 5 to 18, that growth till they're 60, you add that up, that's a couple $1 million. So that's another strategy. But again, before you invest, we always talk to our clients about protecting your income, because without your income, if you're investing and you're investing 20, 30 years, but then you lose your income, now you're dipping into those retirement accounts or your investments early when they're supposed to be for retirement, because they're not protected. So before we invest, or even if you are investing, I encourage you to put a hold until you're protected in all areas. Just like I bet everybody has auto insurance, home insurance, maybe insurance on your boat or your ATVs or whatever it is, pet insurance. Insure your life and insure your income, because your income is the most important thing. So again, whenever making those decisions though, with investing or with insurance, is remember whatever the purpose of it is. That's the best way to make a decision. And Autumn, if you have any more questions, throw them at me. I don't want to take up more time.
No, that was good. I would just say, can you clarify too, as far as small business goes? You talked about key person and how many folks we're working with, you know, they're the protection they put into place, they are doing that through their business. In fact, the premiums even are being paid for by the business. So maybe you can just touch on that, Toby.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you an example. So Autumn owns a business and she has a key person. Let's just say that I'm the key person. Without me, the business doesn't run. I'll give myself that credit. So she has a key person policy on myself, which means if something happens to me, or I don't show up tomorrow, or I pass away unexpectedly, there's a death benefit the business gets, and that would then be used for a salary to hire somebody of my magnitude. Of such a great excellence of how well I helped her run her business, right? Because we can't afford to lose the key person. You know, that's part of it in which we're unlikely to use it, but it's important to have that to protect your business. That's probably 5 to 10%. Now the 90% of the key person insurance is Autumn wants to make sure I stay with her company. She doesn't want me to leave because I'm being asked to come here, there, and she sees value in having me set up that key person insurance policy. And she says, Toby, every month we're going to take 1% of our profits, or 500 a month, or 1,000 a month, or 100 a month, whatever that looks like, and we're going to put it in this tax-free, tax-deferred, whichever one we do, investment vehicle. And if you're with me for the next 5 years or 7 years, that becomes your money. So it's an incentive to get Toby to stay with Autumn's business for the next 5 to 7 years. So I'm incentivized to stay so I can have that. If I end up leaving prior to, you can have an attorney write it up very simply to say if they leave within 7 years, then Autumn gets to retain that money, which she can then use that money. She already had a tax deduction on. She can now use that money to hire someone, and that's their first year salary right there. So it's a very good strategy. Usually you don't see people leaving when you have that. You see them staying and you see them thriving because they want to maintain that relationship and they want to grow. Eventually, likely someone who will likely buy out the company later on down the road if Autumn's retiring, if she's trying to keep it in there. Does that kind of answer the question, Autumn?
Yep, sure. Yeah, and so like I had said too, some of the premiums that come with protection that can be paid for with as a business expense too. So I give the example of, I know somebody that owns a production company and they purchased long-term care insurance for both of the two key people, and the premiums were paid for by the business. So a pretty awesome benefit for those two business owners, like Toby was talking about. Well, lots of information. Your head might be getting a little full, so we will stop there and allow time for Q&A. So back to Reyna, since we just have about 12 minutes left, if anyone has questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Toby and Autumn. I also wanted to add, if there are people that are looking to connect with Autumn and Toby, do you have your contact information that you could shoot in the chat?
Yeah, I'm going to put that up right now.
Perfect. And then if anybody has any questions, you are welcome to introduce yourselves, unmute yourselves. We're going to kind of keep it a little bit open. I actually have a question for you. So if there was one thing that we should be doing immediately after getting off the Zoom that would help our financial future, what would you say that would be?
Well, I can give my opinion and then maybe Toby has a different idea, but it goes back to that first story I talked about, which is the financial foundation. How much is coming in and how much is going out? How much are your expenses every month? And can you reduce that? And if you can reduce that, then how much can you save every month? And then start to set up some automation with that saving, because then you avoid the poof money that it just disappears rather than getting saved. So if you don't know how much your expenses are every month, approximately, right? Because for example, like groceries, gas, entertainment, eating out, things like that, those things are variable. They're not like a set amount, right? But you could go back, go back to your bank statements, the last 6 months, total up, and then average out to kind of come up with a baseline for how much approximately you spend on gas, how much approximately, what's the average you spend on groceries, things like that. But it just kind of starts there as far as the basics. I mean, that sounds so basics, but that's the first thing I would say. And then the second is their automation of savings. It's really hard to get to the end of the month and then like, oh, when I get to the end of the month, hopefully I'll have a couple $100 left that I can put towards my savings goal. See what you can do to set up automation with savings. In my household, we like to actually put the order being, first we talk about, or we establish how much we're going to give, then we establish how much we're going to save every month, and then we work on our spending plan. Toby, you got a different one?
Well, I like what Judas, the last one, I use the word or the phrase, pay yourself first. If the IRS came and said, we're going to take 50% of your pay for the next 5 years, you would have no say, they would take it. So do that to yourself, just put 5% away or whatever that is. But my best piece of advice is, because there's such a diverse, I read through the list, and props to all of you for what you do, but whatever is keeping you up at night, if I say that, what's keeping you up at night when you're thinking about your business or your career or a person or whatever it is, and I say, what's keeping you up at night? Something that comes to mind, I'm going to say, tackle whatever that is, right? Reach out to somebody, advisor, whether it's Autumn or I or anybody else, and attack that first thing up at night.
Yeah, I love that. And, going back one more point around the expenses, I've had multiple people ask me, how much do I need to retire? And the answer is it's different for everyone. So there isn't a magic number. And really it's what kind of lifestyle are you kind of used to living, and how much are those expenses on average? And then you can kind of start to hone in on how much you potentially need in retirement. So that's a lot. We do a lot of planning and strategizing around as people approach retirement, how much they're going to need based on how they're used to living their lifestyle, how much they're used to living, or how much they're used to spending every month or every year. And so that's just something that to be thinking about too. And if you don't know that number, then it's really hard to figure out how much you need someday to take a step back from that full-time career and do something else.
Hi, may I ask a question?
Well, of course you can, Kathy. Hi.
It's not a question. I know we only have 7 minutes left, but I want to jump in here. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Kathy Ferry, and I am a founding member of Minnesota Women in Film and Television. But I want to tell a quick story. I moved here 21 years ago, and I had a lot of security because I came from union, IATSE 891. I was in the production union. I owned my own house. But when I came to the United States, because I'm from Canada, I had to start from ground zero. And I ironically started with Best Buy, and I was a freelancer, and I met Autumn through those years. But my point here is that after working many, many years in the freelance world, I really didn't know where my finances were at, because like many of the people in our industry, we are like just bringing money in, we're putting money out, and we really don't have a chance to kind of figure out, where am I at with finances? Where am I at with retirement. And it wasn't until the last few years as I started to look at retirement. And ironically, I started working for a company that offered a 401k that I saw that Autumn, and this isn't a plug for you, Autumn, but it's kind of ironic because I just saw your name because I'm a founding member up here today. I thought, oh, I want to jump in and see what's going on. But for me, it wasn't about what I was doing right or what I was doing wrong. It was about where am I at in my life and where am I going in my future? And I just want to just say to everybody on this call is that, it doesn't matter what we've done in the past or what we're doing in the future. We have to see where we're at right now, and whatever time we think we have left, structure that so that we feel comfortable where we're going. Because I had really no idea for the last 20 years since I moved here where I was at until I called you and I said, here's my book. Here's who I am. This is what I have. Just tell me when I can retire. Tell me. I don't know. Like I've invested here, there, and everywhere. And just tell me when I can retire. And I love the idea that you laid it all out, told me, okay, if you want to live the same lifestyle you're living now, this is when you can retire. This is what you need to do. And again, this isn't an infomercial. I just jumped on because I wanted to support you because not only am I a big fan of Minnesota Women in Film, but I also am a big supporter of Thrivent. And thank you so much, because for the first time since moving here to Minnesota, I feel like I have a goal. I know when we can retire, and I know where our life is going. So whatever story all of you tuned into, I think that, you have to really take a hard look on where you want to spend your next 20, 30, 40 years, whatever you want. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Kathy. That was so nice of you to share. And I have so loved working with you. And so I appreciate you sharing your story. And, I think you and your husband, one thing I will say about you and your husband is you have made this a priority. You have done a lot of hard work to focus on it, and multiple meetings, and, you put your goals in place. And so that's probably the hardest part, I think, for people, is just deciding, I'm going to make this a priority and I'm going to focus on it and I'm going to make it happen. So I cannot wait to hear more about, the next phase of your life that will be coming up someday soon when you head into retirement, because a lot of fun, a lot of exciting things happening with your next chapter. So thank you, Kathy. That was very nice of you to share.
I agree. Thank you. So I know we have maybe a couple more minutes left. I think it's okay if we go maybe a few minutes over. I have one more question, and maybe just to wrap things up, a quick plug-in for an upcoming event. So Autumn.
Yeah.
Should we know in our business, who would be some important professionals that we should have in our circle as we're moving along in our career?
Yeah, of course, I'm biased that everyone needs a financial advisor. I look at as a financial advisor as kind of a quarterback on a team, meaning that there are times where, so as a financial advisor, our job is to kind of look holistically at your financial picture. And then there are times where we hand off the ball, so to speak, as a quarterback to a different person on the team. That might be a tax professional. In your professions, of course, that a tax professional and somebody that knows your business well, can give you great advice that you can trust, that you can call up at any time, is important. So a tax professional. We, like Toby said, we're not tax professionals, so we can't give tax advice, but we certainly do lots of partnering with tax professionals. So the clients we serve sometimes will even get on phone calls or Zoom calls with a tax professional so that we can strategize together. Also, hugely important to have a lawyer an attorney because things come up in life where we need to get legal advice. An estate planning attorney specifically, hugely important to have one of those people on in your sphere or on your team. We also partner with estate planning attorneys as we start looking at passing on wealth and legacy transfers and stuff. So, if you don't have a will, power of attorney, healthcare directives, things like that written down in place, that is a to-do for sure to have in place. Save your family a lot of expense and a lot of time by having that all documented through an estate planning attorney. Certainly also important to have, a good mortgage broker, banker, those kinds of people if you're looking to make those kinds of purchases. And we have referrals that we can give people to and send people to. Toby, who did I miss?
Oh, good. I did not have a banker on there. I think within the last couple, good to have that on there as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Autumn, Toby, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insight with us. It's really important that we have this information as we are moving along in our career. So I thank you both for your time. I think that is it. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick announcement if you guys want to stay.
No, we'll jump off as you guys do the rest of your MN WIFT housekeeping and information, but just wanted to say thank you again for having myself and Toby to MN WIFT Monday. It was great to see you all and join this group once again. And certainly would love to, if there's some, like we had mentioned, if there's something that you'd like to reach out and learn more about or connect with us, you have our information. So
awesome. I definitely will. Thank you so much, you two.
Have a good evening. Bye now.
You too. Bye. All right, for everybody that's remaining, just to have a couple of updates here, some events that are happening here in the next week and in the coming month. I want to talk about MSPIF. So the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival is happening. Looks like they're going to have a what's it called, like a mixer. I think in the next couple of days, I think even Thursday, I had seen on Facebook. So you might want to check out their website for upcoming events that are happening. They're also doing the opening presentation starting April 13th. Looks like director Bill Polad is going to be attending. He is a Minnesota-based filmmaker. Some of his production credits include Brokeback Mountain, The Tree of Life, which he was also nominated for Best Picture, 12 Years a Slave, and yes. So there's going to be other special guests invited. The tickets wouldn't be included in the opening night party. So I can go ahead and drop that link in the chat if you guys are interested in attending that. I think it's going to be a really great season for MSPIF. So I will send that in. I think that was all the information I needed to put out there in the world. I'm really happy that you all attended today, and I'm looking forward to just being available to you all again. And if you're not a member yet at MN WIFT, email us. We are always welcoming new members. So feel free to put that in the chat box if you like. Otherwise, you all have a beautiful, beautiful evening. And Diane, nice to meet you. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. All right. Thank you, everybody. If there's no other things, I'll just stay on, but you're welcome to log off. Bye, everybody.
I want to say hi to Chris.
Oh, Kathy, I'm not sure if Chris is on. I think
he's still on. I think I saw Christopher Powers still.
Yes, he's on, but we tried talking to Chris's name, and I feel like maybe he's not in.
Oh, okay. So hello. I don't think we've met before.
No, I recently joined the board of directors, Kathy, just in the last month and a half.
Okay.
So it's good to hear that you're one of the founding members.
You are a beautiful host. And
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
you did really well. And
Thank you.
ironically, I'm serious. I was serious when I said I wasn't trying to do an infomercial. I saw Autumn and I was like, oh my gosh, how ironic. Like,
Oh my goodness, funny.
so that was awesome. Really nice presentation. Chris is still on, but I don't think he's answering. So maybe he's not
Guess I
on.
could stop recording here. Yes.